Welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm Bill Pollock. Just a couple of days, the Missouri Tigers kick off their 2014 season against South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. And joining us is Tyler Merriam. He's the voice of the Jackrabbits. He joins us on this Google Hangout to talk about South Dakota State. Tyler, glad to have you along. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us here on a Google Hangout.
Hey, always glad to be a part of it. Thanks for having me.
Tyler, you guys are a part of the Learfield family, and just so everyone knows, we're all owned by Learfield. You're on the college sports side, we're on the news side, so one big family. Glad you could join us. This is the seventh year in a row that South Dakota State is playing a major D1 school, and you've had a mixed bag of results, a couple of close games, a 3-point loss to Minnesota. You hung in there against Nebraska a few years ago, and then there's been some blowouts along the way. But this is a very talented program. How excited are the players about playing an SEC team for the first time?
You know, they try to temper that as far as their excitement of just going to play a game, and that starts with head coach John Stiegelmeier, that they're not going to collect a check. They're not going just to play a game and to experience the atmosphere of it. They're going to try to win. That's obviously the main goal, as challenging of a task as that is. Certainly there's some excitement that it's the first time that they've played a Southeastern Conference program, but those who have any knowledge of Jackrabbit football know that it's kind of a boring program from the standpoint that Coach John Stiegelmeier's mantra is 1-0 each week, and that kind of goes down to the players. And so you don't get a lot of trash talk. You don't get any of that. You don't get any of this overhyped type of stuff. It's very simple and to the point of 1-0 each week. You're only as good as your last play. Whoever is on the field is number one in the depth chart. So it's kind of blah in that regard, which has served them well. It's a big reason why they've been able to bounce back from losses and be as successful of a program as they have been. But you don't hear a lot about how excited they are to go to Missouri. You hear that it's one game in the schedule. In fact, Zach Zenner said it a few weeks ago, if we beat Missouri, then lose every FCS game we play and don't make the playoffs, who cares if you beat Missouri because you didn't make the playoffs? So it's all about the journey to the end as opposed to one particular game.
Well, I like to hear that. And I'm not kidding you, Tyler. I've heard head coaches who have told me, we're there to collect a paycheck, and we'll take our lumps and hopefully not get injured. So it's nice to hear that South Dakota State is going to come here and be ready for a game. And certainly Missouri State fans are familiar with you guys being in the Missouri Valley Conference, one of the top teams. Talk a bit about your season. 9-5 this year? You're ranked in the top 10 in the preseason polls for second year in a row. Talk a little bit about your team, and in particular, your top running back, Zach Zenner.
Well, certainly the skill position players that are back. Austin Sumner is back at quarterback. He is a guy who is in his fourth year as a starter, who already is the career passing record holder at South Dakota State. Jason Schneider, a kid from Minnesota, is coming off the records for SDSU for the most receptions in a season, second most yards in a season in program history. So those two guys are huge parts of the offense. And then you mentioned Zach Zenner, one of only two FCS backs to ever run for 2,000 yards in consecutive seasons. And he is not a guy that, when you look at the numbers, blows you away as far as his 40 time. And you look at him and you go, yeah, he looks like he's an athlete, but he doesn't make you marvel until you watch him play. You ask him how fast he is, he will tell you fast enough. And there's some truth to that. I mean, you put him on in a 40-yard dash against the Kansas defensive backs, the KU guys are probably going to beat him. Yet on the field, he outran them for 99 yards for a touchdown. He ran for 200 yards in the first half at Nebraska. He's run for a school record 295 yards in 2 different games. He's just a sensational back all the way around, and he can catch the ball. He's a good blocker, but obviously in particular, he finds a way to get yardage. Very rarely goes backwards, always seems to find a way to get at least a yard, if not more. Again, very talented kid, a hard worker, and he's in position, if he has another 2,000-yard season, could become the all-time school record holder for rushing yards. But that's not a goal of his. It's merely to win football games. They've even talked about, as a coaching staff, trying to lighten his load a little bit because he carries so often and takes so much punishment. He really is a workhorse, and it's no secret. If the Jacks are to have any chance to win in Columbia on Saturday, Zenner's going to have to carry the the load and the brunt of things offensively.
That'll be a great test for the Missouri Tigers. So much talk about the strength of their defensive line and how well they did last year in the SEC of stopping the run. So right out of the gate, taking on a very tough back. We're talking with Tyler Merriam. He's the voice of the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Only 5 starters return on defense. A lot of question marks there.
There are some. You look up front, Cole Langer, who is actually the grandson of Pro Football Hall of Famer Jim Langer. He was the center on the Miami Dolphins undefeated teams in the 70s. He is back as a sophomore at D-tackle, very good defensive end, and Jack Sherlock, who's a team captain. Beyond that, there's a lot of youth at the defensive end and tackle positions. You look at the linebackers, a veteran Mike linebacker and TJ Lally back, but really the most athletic linebacker, Charles Elmore, is out for the year with an injury to his shoulder. That's a big loss for the Jacks. So at one outside backer, you have a sophomore who played some of the true freshmen last year, who they're high on, but still only has so much experience. At the other outside backer, they have 2 guys who started last year as defensive backs and have migrated to that position. They're very happy with their secondary. They have 4 guys who have a lot of experience, and they're very athletic. They think they can really do some things in that defensive secondary. But that front 7 is going to be challenged. And in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, it's such a battle up front, and obviously it's that times 10 in the Southeastern Conference. They're going to have to play well up front if they have any chance to win.
All right, so we'll have to keep an eye on Russell Hansbrough and Marcus Murphy. They could have big days on the ground, but some big question marks in terms of Mizzou's passing game with basically a brand-new set of receivers coming in that Matty Mock will have to throw to and some experience back there in the secondary. So a couple of interesting matchups here in this first week. 6 players, Tyler, from the state of Missouri, and 2 of them from Columbia, from Rockbridge High School. Mark Pickerel and Freeman Simmons. Simmons, is that his last name? Right, yeah. Have you had a chance to talk to them at all about coming home and playing in their home city?
They're excited about it. I think everybody from Missouri is excited about it from being around a few of them. But by the same token, again, it's kind of boring when you talk to them because that's how they are. They're excited, but they understand the job at hand. And of course, both those guys are vying for time as defensive backs, so don't know how much they'll get on the field. Certainly, they would like to see a lot of time. We'll see how the game plays out, and if it ends up being 100 degrees, they'll probably play a little more than if it's 80 and raining, which I think is the latest forecast I saw. But no, that they're always excited to get back to Missouri, and I think even though they downplay it, there's no question that when you play in front of 60, 70, 80,000 fans, there's always a different level of intensity than when you go to Western Illinois and play in front of 5,000. It's just it's a different deal on the field.
You talked about the weather. What are the summers like up there in Brookings? Because we've had for the last week and a half heat index where it's been triple digits, and I know they're talking about a little bit cooler and some rain, so who knows what we're going to get. It's either going to be real hot and humid or we're going to luck out. What's the summer like up there in South Dakota?
It's been milder than others. It can get into the triple digits here at times. We are not. We are not immune to that, but it's been fairly good. There's been a few days in the mid-90s. It's been a lot of upper 80s. In fact, lately here it's been low 80s. But that certainly is something they've talked about, is trying to rotate a lot, in particular on the defensive line and the offensive line, because if it's going to be 90-plus, and again, we'll see what Mother Nature has in store for us in a few days, they're going to need to get as many guys in as possible, stay as fresh as possible to avoid cramps, and to keep your talent level on as high of a perch as it can be.
Well, Tyler, we certainly appreciate your time. We're looking forward to seeing the Jackrabbits and some exciting players, and certainly we'll keep an eye on you. I mean, you guys are in a tough division, and you've got some tough games throughout the entire year. This is a great way for you guys to start.
Yeah, it's a challenging first game. It's the first of 12, and the Jacks have obviously never beaten an FBS program. It's on national TV, so it's a great opportunity to showcase Zach Zenner and Austin Sumner and Jason Schneider in South Dakota State, and they certainly want to do that with a win. Like we said before, they're not going down there just to cash a check, and we'll see how things play out on Saturday at Farrell Field.
Well, it should be good. Tyler Merriam, the voice of South Dakota State and the Jackrabbits, thanks again for visiting with us, and hopefully we can catch up with you in the press box.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Bill.
All right. Thank you, and thanks for watching us here at MissouriNet.com.